What's going on, y'all? Peter Griffin here. So there's been a lot of discussion lately about the current state of Zenless Zone Zero's endgame as of lately. And I'm going to give my overall thoughts on the current state of the game right now because, let's be real, the game's in a horrible spot. The game is dying as the days go by, and it's honestly starting to become the next HSR with how bad the HP inflation and the power creep is in the endgame. And it's honestly sad to see because out of the three Hoyo games, Zenless Zone Zero had the most potential to be the best out of all of them. And I mean it genuinely too. Because I feel like comparing Zenless Zone Zero to the other two Hoyo games is not really a fair competition because, let's be real, who's playing Genshin Impact in 2025? The game sucks and it has nothing left to offer, and same goes for HSR. It had something to offer at the beginning, but then after 2.0 the game just fell off a cliff, so you really have no reason to play that game as well. Like, at its core, I still think the game is a very enjoyable game, but because of how bad the end game is and how bad the power creep is, the game has just not been fun to play. And now I think it's time we talk about what led to Zenless Zone Zero's horrific downfall, because there are a couple of factors that played into this. So starting off, we got HP inflation, and honestly I think it's the biggest factor as to why the game is as bad as it is right now. And it's honestly laughable with how much Hoyo has been able to get away with this much HP inflation in ZZZ. And the fact that nobody talked about it outside of a couple people for the longest time is crazy. And the only person I've seen talk about HP inflation before it started to get really bad was Saint Tontas. And whether you like Saint Tontas or not, you have to admit that he was right, because he was the only person that was calling this out for a while that I could think of. And he was making multiple videos about the game's endgame situation as well for a while too. And what's crazy to me is that nobody batted an eye to what he said. Nobody believed him. People said that it was a skill issue. Others said that he was delusional. But look at the current state of the game right now. He was right all along, and most of the community did not want to believe it. And if you look at how much the HP has risen over the past couple months as well, it is quite horrifying to see. And if you still don't think it's as bad as I'm saying as it is, look at this chart. This chart shows how much the HP has risen over the past couple patches from 1.4 all the way to 2.2. And as you can see, the total HP at the beginning of 1.4 was 20 million. It has now doubled to 40 million, which is diabolical. And this is just for sheer defense. I haven't even shown the chart yet for Deadly Assault. And the chart for Deadly Assault is quite laughable. Like, look at this. And I know for Deadly Assault the bosses are meant to have high HP, but this is still a crazy amount to see. And because of how much the HP has risen in both Shiyu defense and Deadly Assault, it has now come to a point where if you want to actually get a decent score in both Shiyu defense and Deadly Assault, you have to pull the new character on banner. And it's honestly wild to me how much the HP has risen in this game, and people did not talk about it for the longest period. And people not talking about it led to the end game's downfall, and honestly, I don't even know if this could be saved. But I do think there's still a very small chance of the end game being saved. And the reason why I say there's a very small chance is only because of the amount of people I've seen talk about the end game's HP inflation as of lately. And there's even been a couple of big ZZZ content creators talking about how bad the HP inflation has gotten as well. So I still think there's a very small chance that the end game could be fixed. But hopefully the devs will listen, but we'll have to see about that. Now next up, let's talk about Miasma, because this mechanic is stupid and has effectively hurt a lot of the roster. Now I don't know who at the ZZZ dev team thought it was a good idea to implement a mechanic where a boss can gain a significant amount of damage reduction, and the only way for it to go down is to use a rupture character, or you save up all your character's ultimates until the Miasma bar pops up and then you use it to get rid of it. And God forbid the boss has a second Miasma bar, because if the boss has a second Miasma bar and you used up all your ultimates, the boss is pretty much telling you to go f yourself. And it makes the boss just a pain to honestly go up against. And it just makes me wonder, what was the point of adding the rupture class in the first place if it was only meant to counter Miasma? Like, I do think that the rupture class could have been actually something interesting if Miasma just was not in the game. And the only difference that rupture applies throughout like every other class in ZZZ is that it just goes through defenses. So it's pretty much just another attack class, except it penetrates through all types of defenses. So it's pretty much just another attack class, but slightly better. And since the rupture class is also getting new characters with Yutari and Minato in 2.3, I'm just worried if Miasma is going to get worse, or if they're going to introduce some new stupid mechanic that you're going to need a rupture agent for. So one way I do think they can actually fix Miasma is to make it to where all agents can actually just shred through the defense of Miasma, because the fact that only rupture agents can get through Miasma really fast compared to all the other agents where they actually have to take time to get through it is just stupid. For example, if you were to use Yishun right now, if you were to use her skill and ultimate, they would pretty much delete the Miasma bar in an instant, while if you were to use just about any other character like Miyabi or Alice, you would have to save up all of your character's ultimates, and you would have to pray that every character's ultimate would have to shred through the Miasma bar, and even then it's not even guaranteed that it's going to go away completely. And again, if the boss does have a second Miasma bar, you're cooked unless you have a rupture agent. Like, it's honestly laughable how much Miasma just completely invalidates the cast, and how it forces people to use rupture agents instead of using their favorite characters or their favorite teams. And it makes the endgame just not a fun experience. And again, I've barely seen anybody talk about Miasma up until now, now. The only person I've seen talk about Miasma back when it was first introduced or when it was still fairly new was again Saint Tontos. Now I could be wrong about him being the only person that was vocal about it, but he was the only person that I saw that was vocal about Miasma. But I could be wrong about that. But anyway, Miasma is a very horrible mechanic and I wish this was never added to the game. What I think they could do to fix Miasma is either A, rework it to the point where anomaly agents, rupture agents, and attack agents can get through the Miasma bar at a very similar rate, or just remove it from the game completely. And to be honest, I would go with the second option because this mechanic is just horrible. And I high-key want it gone because it's straight up annoying to deal with. And finally, the final factor that helped ruin Zenless Zone Zero's endgame are elitists. And you're probably about to question, how did elitists ruin Zenless Zone Zero's endgame? Well, it's pretty simple actually. They lie and they spread blatant misinformation. They try to act like that miasma and HP inflation is a skill issue, and they think that if you don't like neither HP inflation or miasma, you're just bad at the game. And it's a very stupid and ignorant way of thinking. Not only that, they try to prove that HP inflation doesn't exist by using standard units, which doesn't sound all too bad. But this is the issue. They have top 1% builds, some of the best standard characters that are built on the server, and they try to claim that HP inflation doesn't exist. They'll have heavily invested characters like Soldier 11 with god tier substats and god tier artifacts, and they will try to claim that HP inflation doesn't exist. And they also try to use some sweaty rotation trying to get the most damage possible on set standard character, which is quite lame and pretty loser activity in my opinion. But anyway, they'll sit there and try to justify that HP inflation doesn't exist when they'll have some of the best built standard characters on the server, when to the average person, if they were to have a decently invested character like Soldier 11 with mid-tier artifacts and mid-tier substat rolls, they'll also use a very decent rotation, optimal rotation, not a very sweaty rotation. And when they do use set standard character, they realize that their standard character cannot get a good score in shield defense or deadly assault compared to someone who grinds the game out, only plays that has top 1% builds with god tier artifacts and god tier substat rolls. And when they try to use set standard character to prove that HP inflation doesn't exist with their top 1% build, they just look stupid in all honesty. And then they'll have the audacity to say to get better and that it's a skill issue when it's not even the player's fault, when they can't control how bad Miasma is and how bad the HP inflation gets. And I think we all know who I'm talking about when they say that HP inflation doesn't exist, Miasma isn't a bad mechanic, and that it's your fault and that it's a skill issue. I think we all know who I'm talking about. And if you've been in the Zenless Zone Zero community for a little bit, I think you all know. It's a couple of content creators, but I think you know who the main content creator that says this is. And also, I just want to say this, I don't think elitists represent the entire Zenless Zone Zero community. It's a very small fraction of the community, but they don't represent the entire community. So if you thought that I was saying that elitists represent the whole community, or when I was talking about elitists, I was thinking about the whole community, no, they just represent a very small sub-fraction of the community, which they are very annoying. So now that I described the three main factors that are killing ZZZ in its current state, I want to give my opinion on the current state of the game right now. And I also want to address this because there's probably going to be some people thinking that I'm making this video purely for clout or to call out a couple of certain content creators, or just because this is a hot topic in the gacha space right now. And that's just false. I'm doing this because I just want the game to get better. As someone who's been playing Zenless Zone Zero since the release and has endured the TVs, like when the TVs were still in the game, I still played the game because of how much I love the game, and has stuck with Zenless Zone Zero up until 2.1 where I started to slow down on playing the game. To say that I'm doing this only for clout or just because it's a hot topic in the gacha space right now is very disingenuous, and not only that, it's a blatant lie. Like, I know I haven't covered Zenless Zone Zero as much in the past couple months, but I am still covering it. I just haven't been covering it as much because there's just not much stuff in the game that I want to cover. And there's not really a lot of stuff I'm looking forward to covering either besides Orpheus coming out, and that's just about it. And I do want Zenless Zone to get better as a game. Believe it or not, there was a time where I actually thought Zenless Zone Zero and Wuthering Waves were equal, but then Wuthering Waves shot 2.0 and I thought that Wuwa was a clear winner. But I still like Zenless Zone Zero as much as Wuwa, but now I still think Wuwa is the better game, and I've played both games since day one. But I still do want Zenless Zone Zero to improve. Like, if they slow down with the HP inflation and find a way to rework Miasma or just remove it from the game completely, the potential that this game could have is honestly quite high. And I hope that the dev team wakes up and realizes that soon, because at its core, this game does have a lot of potential, and I think fundamentally, this game could work honestly as a gacha. Hell, it might even become a staple if its potential is fully realized, but we gotta wait and see, and we gotta just hope as well. And in all honesty, I think I'm gonna slow down on covering this game because, again, there's just not much I'm looking forward to besides Orpheus' banner coming out, so I think I'm just gonna make a video on me summoning on her banner, but that's just about it. If Zenless Zone Zero does do something interesting, I definitely will cover it. I do want to come back to covering this game, but as of right now, the content is just not looking good enough of covering. So I am hoping that 2.3 might pull something. Hopefully it will make the game good again, but we gotta see, and I'm kind of doubting it, but I do have a little bit of hope. Anyway, thank you for watching the video. Comment down below how you feel about the current state of ZZZ as of right now. Make sure you like and subscribe and hit that bell for when I upload a new video. I will also leave the ZZZ HP inflation total chart in the description below in case you want to check it out for yourselves. And I just want to say thank you to St. Totas for leaving that up and just for allowing everyone to use it, which did help this video a little bit. Like, I know he didn't make it for me directly, but he made it for everyone so they could see it, so I'm glad that he was able to do this, so thank you. And before I do head out, let me show you how Hoyoverse killed Zenless Zone Zero.
Sorry, Kai, but your luck has run out.